Hey, what's up? It is Crypto Bobby, and I regret to inform you that it is so over right now, or at least that's what popular sentiment is saying. That's what the Bitcoin price is saying. That's what a lot of things are saying right now is it is so over. It's so done. We are in doom and gloom as opposed to like 10 plus days ago where, the entire industry was riding pretty high on the back of the Bitcoin ETF approval. So I want to talk about where we are right now, what it means, and why I think looking beyond the short term, looking at the medium to long term, we are positioned in a perfectly fine manner if you have some degree of conviction in this space and have the intestinal fortitude to handle some short term fluctuations that are caused by none other than A, sentiment, B, the stuff that's happening with GBTC. So we're going to talk about all of that and more in today's episode. So since we last spoke, we had a conversation prior to the Bitcoin ETF approval about why I was, in many cases, buying the rumor, or I'd already bought the rumor and just kind of holding through the news. I had a tough time, seeing exactly how this would be a massive, massive sell the news event. Turns out, hey, we'll talk about that more, but thus far, it's basically been a sell the news event. And, that's life in the crypto space. The big thing that's driving a lot of this, besides, or really a combination of between just the sell the news sentiment, people taking profit, but then we also have it as happening right now with GBTC versus the 9 other newly approved ETFs. The 3 most important being the BlackRock ETF, IBIT, the Fidelity ETF, FBTC, and then the Bitwise ETF as well. And in some combination ARC as well. But really the 2 big ones, the 2 big dogs in the room that look like it at this point in time that are going to get the majority of probably the business being IBIT and FBTC. And so what we have happening is really a bleed of Grayscale, GBTC, and a kind of contest or a race between will the outflows of Grayscale be outpaced by the inflows to the BlackRock Fidelity ETFs. And over the first 6 or so days, that has kind of been the case, actually. We still have had over $1 billion in net inflows, even with the outflows of Grayscale. But now we're starting to see just a continued hammering from Grayscale, where it's basically been about $600 million of outflows a day. And I believe that is still looking like, according to the on-chain analytics today, looks to be the case with what Grayscale had sent to Coinbase. So we'll see what's happening there. But now we have this kind of boogeyman in the room of Grayscale. It's, oh my God, Grayscale is going to dump. They have $20 billion more, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, for the time being, I think if you are looking at this likely in a somewhat objective mindset, is BlackRock and Fidelity going to outpace Grayscale's outflows? And we'll see exactly what happens. I don't think anybody can, permanently or really accurately predict exactly what's going to happen with that. Are some of those outflows from Grayscale going to Fidelity and BlackRock because of the lower fees of those products? And is that happening? I'm sure some of it. Is some of that just net sell pressure? Yeah, I'm sure some of that is net profit taking. And so it's a combination of things right now. But for me, the thing that I'm thinking about and the thing that I'm really looking at with this situation is the sentiment in the room. And so we're now at a point in time where Bitcoin went up to nearly 50K upon that ETF approval. And now we're down, as of the time of recording this, just under $39,000. And as we were in this process, I think a lot of people looked at the 38K number as support. A lot of people on Bitcoin, at least, were talking about, that if we're going to pull back, that is a number to keep in mind. And now we're below 39K. We're kind of looking at that 38K number at this point. And sentiment on crypto Twitter and just in the investing world is really not super great on Bitcoin. You're officially at like a 20-ish% pullback number. And you have crypto native people that have been sidelined for quite some time, kind of dancing around. You also have the TradFi groups really dancing around too. I mean, Jim Cramer, who is famously Inverse Cramer, unlikely, this is 22 hours ago, but unlikely that Bitcoin finds its footing. Bitcoin is tough to own. Now that Bitcoin is down 20% from its all-time highs, I expect a stand to be made, but it won't hold. Not enough new money's coming in. New theme, number go down, making fun of the number go up crew. And looking at all the sentiment, looking at the price, yes, Grayscale is going to continue to be a negative pressure on the price of Bitcoin. And I think obviously that further reflects into altcoins as well, because everything in this industry is typically pretty correlated. But Grayscale is going to continue to be a negative pressure. How long that lasts, I don't know. At this rate, maybe a month and a half, maybe two, maybe less. But it's a pretty substantial negative pressure. That said, when you think about the sentiment, you think about the gloating from TradFi people that are now saying, the Bitcoin ETF was stupid. Nobody ever needed this product. It was a waste of time. Even people I'm seeing that are crypto natives basically calling this the cycle top and saying, we're not going to get back to this all-time high or we're not going to get back to this cycle top high of like 49.50K. It's just not going to happen. Just conveniently ignoring a variety of factors, including the halving coming up in April, the narrative that produces. We'll talk a little bit more just about the TradFi world, basically pushing all-time highs on a daily basis. I think that if you have a little bit of conviction here, if you are comfortable holding through the volatility over the next month to 2 months, I think you are going to get to a point in time where BlackRock is eventually going to run out of coins to sell. And on the flip side, Fidelity and BlackRock, those products are going to continue to grow. And if you're thinking about things too from an objective perspective, BlackRock and Fidelity are better, more well-regarded companies than Grayscale and DCG at this point in time. You have two stalwarts of the financial just complex, basically, who are going to be the massive proponents for Bitcoin from a marketing perspective to grow those products versus a company that has been dealt with a variety of really tough situations within the crypto space between the DCG issues there, Barry Silbert being brought up and DCG being brought up on charges in New York, all types of crazy things related to Genesis trading and things of that nature. What's going to happen in 2 months is going to be eventually this GBTC stuff will be behind us. Is the product going to go to zero? No, but eventually they'll stop selling, and eventually Fidelity and BlackRock are going to consistently outpace and outperform those on the way up, and that's going to be a positive thing. And this slide was from our last conversation when we were talking about the ETF and what I think would happen. And I said, buy the rumor, hold the news. And if we're looking at it, perhaps it would have been the better move to sell the news. I'm not a big short-term trader per se. I don't love the tax burden and the variety of factors on that. So that's not necessarily my style to do that, to buy back 20% lower. It just doesn't really work for me with the multiples that I want to be shooting for. But if we're talking about the best price to buy and sell, especially if you live in a place with a low tax burden that is not one of the most expensive states in the United States, then go for that. But for me, I was thinking about this in a buy the rumor, hold the news type situation. I'm still here. I'm still holding the news, and I still have that medium to long-term bullish outlook on things. And for me, the quote too from our homie Charlie Munger talking about the waiting process. And I think that's really where we are at this point in time. And just to reiterate too, it's the big money is not in the buying and the selling, but in the waiting. And if you can wait 1 to 2 months here and let the market absorb this negative GBTC flow and transfer that money from GBTC to Larry and to Fidelity, then I think we are going to be in a much better situation. And conveniently, as of the time of that happening, guess what that is? That is roughly the halving. And so obviously, things don't necessarily immediately spike straight up from the halving, but I think when you combine a variety of those things, simply buying now and or just holding where you are now and not trying to go nuts overly trading at this point in time, I think you're going to do yourself a service just with a degree of patience. And so this was a tweet from Gainsey, who I enjoy following on Twitter. Some of you may not, but I think this remains very true regardless of what you think about Gainsey. And I think this is a great tweet. And so he said, I don't know, Grayscale puke probably creates the last bottom before a parabolic move up, unless the year is plagued by more FUD and gives institutions more chop to accumulate retail's Bitcoin. Downside here is like 20%, upside is like 250. Basically paradise for rich people, hell for everyone else. Excuse me, he said patient rich people. And I think you can even just take rich out. Basically paradise for patient people. And so that's kind of my thought process here. And I think the thing that I want to talk about with you and would love to hear your opinions in the comments too. If you're watching on YouTube, please let me know like what your mindset is. What are you thinking right now? Are you just out of the market right now? Don't care at all at this point in time? You wait and holding patiently? What's your mindset in this? Always helps me to get a gauge. But I really do agree with this. Like the downside here, maybe it's 20% from Bitcoin. Maybe it's 25%. Maybe it's 30%. I don't really know. But we are looking at massive, massive upside in the case of a halving, in the case of actually net positive inflows into this ETF after we get through this grayscale crap that's going on. And so for patient people, it is going to be a really positive thing. And it's kind of funny because like for me, even just coming back to the YouTube channel, like I honestly, in many cases, don't feel like I always have that much to say, which can be kind of why I stopped doing the YouTube channel in like the first place. Cause there's only so many times and there's only so many ways you can really tell somebody like, okay, you buy this stuff when everybody thinks it's a scam, you hold it. And then when your second cousin, who is a crazy person, asks you about the 747th market cap coin on CoinGecko, that's probably when you want to sell. And so for me, like there's only so many ways to say, hey, buy this stuff, hold it, be patient, and wait for just general craziness to ensue. And then you can take some profit and move on. And then wait for things to get crazy again in a negative way and average back in. And you can only say that so many times a week. And YouTube really, and just like the financial media, Twitter, everything kind of moves towards daily and hourly moves and just the crazy stuff that's happening. And so it is not really conducive to being patient, to pay attention to all the stuff that happens on a daily basis. And I am as guilty of this as anybody. Like I literally bought a third monitor just to have TradingView on my desktop because I enjoy it and I like to keep track of things and I like to see what's going on. Am I buying and selling like frequently? No, not at all. I just like to keep, it's like a video game for me. I enjoy it. It's fun for me, but is it probably good or healthy for me to do that? Not at all, because I'm buying this stuff and holding it for a multi-month to multi-year time horizon. That's like the time horizon that I think. And so when you are worried about a 10% or 15 or 20% market move over the course of a week, when you are trying to think about this stuff in a long-term time horizon, it doesn't really do you any good and it's not conducive to that. And I think the media in general, and by media, I just kind of mean like any type of information that's coming in, the media being mainstream media, although if you're watching this, you probably don't watch as much of that, but like mainstream media, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, like all of that type of stuff really gears itself towards just overloading you with daily information and trying to get you interested. And frankly, to get you interested, you have to be worried and you have to be hyper aware on a daily basis to really just like always be like thinking and worried about like, what's the price? What's it going to do? What's it going to do? And 99% of the time that shit doesn't matter. And we're kind of in that point right now, I guess is my ultimate point is what's happening with Grayscale probably over the next month to 2 months. If it takes that long or if it doesn't take that long, I don't know. Nobody knows. But whatever is happening with that is a temporary pressure. It is not going to last for the entirety of Bitcoin's existence. And I think undoubtedly the products that are offered right now through these ETFs are better financial instruments than we've ever had before for regular or traditional investors or your grandma and grandpa if they want to get exposure into Bitcoin. It's cheaper than Grayscale's was at 2% fees. You can get in at 30 basis points. You can buy it in a regular brokerage account. You can do all those things. And so it is objectively a better product than we've ever had before for Bitcoin in particular. And I think that ultimately that is going to lead to a positive situation. And so for me, again, I think having a level of patience and being able to deal with this potential downside, which, hey, maybe 20, maybe 25, maybe 30%, and thinking about multi-100% upside in Bitcoin, or if it's altcoins that you like, whatever asset you enjoy, whatever you like trading, whatever you like investing in. I don't care. I don't have judgment in that. But that's like my general opinion on this stuff is just having the patience and trying to ignore the daily fluctuations as much as possible. And again, that's coming from this person that me is making YouTube, making a podcast where I'm talking about this stuff, but I don't make it at the frequency that I quote unquote should or could to maximize my own benefit, just because I don't think there's that much to talk about on a consistent basis. It's what is the best thing for you? How can you, kind of maintain that medium to long-term view? And I think that's where you're going to do the best versus short-term trading on high leverage that is going to chop you up into infinity and keep you poor. Don't do that. So that's my little ramble about where my head is at right now, what I'm thinking about, and really why I'm still bullish at this point in time, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm holding on to where I'm at right now. I have conviction in where I'm at. And hey, maybe I'm wrong. And that is the risk you take in the markets. You never know. But I have conviction that I'm right over the medium to long term. And I think that that will play out. And what is happening in the short term, while it's probably going to suck, while it might hurt getting kicked in the nuts repetitively by GBTC and the outflows caused by that, and we'll see how net outflows, if they are net or if they're net inflows, but why that situation is temporary and in the long term, it will only improve over the past few months and align with a number of positive things that I think are going to happen for the industry. Let me know in the comments if you think that, hey, this stuff it's over for good, we're never hitting another cycle top, or if you have a positive outlook, medium to long term. Just would love to hear from you in the comments and definitely try to interact as much there as possible. Thank you for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. Crypto Bobby signing out. Have a good one.